Hey, Daddy. Hey, Daddy. What's up, Daddy-o? Hey, Dad.
What's up, everybody? It is episode number 4 of the Pudgy Daddy podcast, and as you can see, we're doing things a little bit different. I am coming to you from the road this week. If you are checking out the podcast on audio through Spotify or through Anchor, if the audio is a little bit different, it's because I'm on the road. I'm traveling on the eastern part of the state this week, so we're doing this episode from the road. But we are kicking off our new series entitled Men of War, and I'm really excited to get into it. I hope you guys really enjoy it. Let's get it started.
Hear the devil calling. Hear the devil calling. Well, I hear the devil calling. Gotta pay him what he's due. I can't stop the dogs of war. I can't stop the dogs of war.
All right, guys, this is episode number 4 of the Pudgy Daddy podcast, and as I mentioned in the intro, this is segment number 1 of our new series entitled Men of War. This segment is called Answering the Call, and as you can see, I am on the road. I wanted to do this with as much transparency and honesty as possible, and I thought the best way to do that was to give you guys a view of what my normal day consists of. You know, I really enjoy being able to talk about the studio and all the high-tech equipment, but the truth is, with my job, majority of the time I'm on the road and I'm traveling. So I thought it'd be a really good way to kick off this series, bring you guys into my world, and it just might make it easier just to have a little bit more of a conversation as opposed to a scripted episode. That being said, I am on the road, and so I'm starting out with a new dash mount, and so as far as availability and clicks and clickbait goes, if I roll my truck or happen to run over an old lady or something, I'm sure it will do wonders for making us famous and getting a bunch of views. I'd like to get it for another reason other than that, but you never know. I've had more than one car blow the horn at me for drifting into the other lane, so let's hope that's not the case. Anyway, starting off with this series, Answering the Call. 2 things I wanted to put out to you guys first, just as kind of as a precursor to getting started. The first one is this series, as you can probably imagine, be entitled Men at War, is all about spiritual warfare, but I don't want it to be exclusive to the idea of spiritual warfare, right? So my faith, being a Christian, and as I know most of you are, that's something that is and should be on our forefront of our thoughts every single day. But I also understand that there are a lot of men out there and a lot of guys that I have in my circle of influence who don't believe the same set of core beliefs that I believe, right? Don't share my faith, and that's fine for where they are. But I did want to make it exclusive to where it left them out, and so I'm kind of presenting this from the standpoint of it's about a battle, and it's a war for your mind, for your heart, for your family, for your wife, for your kids, for your home, for everything that's good and everything that you believe in your life. It's a battle for those things. So we're going to come at it from the perspective of a spiritual context, but I also hope that there will be things that can be taken from the conversation, regardless of what your belief system is, that you can find applicable. The second thing is, precursor, I'm not a soldier. Hands-free, by the way. I'm not a soldier, right? I've never been a soldier. I've never been in the military. In fact, I did get really, really close. So I come from a long line of military in my family. So my dad was a Marine. My dad's dad was a Marine. My dad's younger brother served in the Coast Guard. My mom's dad was in the Navy. His dad was in the military. My grandfather served in Korea, and so that idea of masculinity for me has always been tied to. Speaking of which, I just missed my exit, so you guys get an extra few minutes with me. My idea of masculinity has always been tied to this certain circle that involves the military, and men who are willing to sacrifice, men who are fearless, men who are willing to walk into battle, and to put everything that they believe on the line to protect others, right? And so as awesome as that is, I've never actively served. But to that, so kind of a funny story. When I was getting ready to get out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I guess I always just assumed that I would go into the military because that's what the other men in my family did. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of ambition for college or anything else that might have presented itself. And so just by chance, I did end up filling out one single college application to UNC Pembroke. I got in, ended up going, and then in my first semester on campus, 9/11 happened. And so if you don't know, UNC Pembroke is about a half an hour from Fort Bragg. And so when 9/11 happened, it sparked, as it did with most of our country, it sparked this anger and passion and I don't even know what the emotion is, but this desire to fight and to jump into that battle. And so after my first year at UNC Pembroke, I came back home, was just trying to reassess. I didn't find any motivation to do anything else. And so I kind of fell back on that passion, that anger that I felt when I was at Pembroke, and decided to enlist in the U.S. Marine Corps. And so I went in and did my ASVAB and found out what my placement would be, what my rank would be going into it, because I did have college credits, and everything was good to go, and got a phone call from the recruiter and said, we're all ready to go. Got one little minor issue, no worries, to show up at this address. It was for a hotel in Charlotte, and we'll get you set up, we're ready to go. We'll come to find out, and again, if you think the idea of pudgy is new, it's not new. So the little hiccup that we had to get past was apparently I was overweight for my height. And so if you don't know the way the military does it, it's based off weight, but it's also taking off measurements of your neck and your stomach. And so I've always been a little bit of a bloated kid. I was the kid who wore husky cut jeans when I was in elementary school and got made fun of. So the idea and the plan for this was, hey, easy fix. The recruiter says, what we're going to do is we'll bring you in, we're going to coach you down with Bengay, and we're just going to wrap you up in saran wrap, and we're going to give you hot baths all night, and you'll just sweat off that extra weight. You'll be good to go in the morning. And call me crazy, but something just didn't set right with that. Is that if I've got to do all that to make weight so I can leave in 24 hours, maybe I need to rethink this whole thing. And so I didn't show up for it, and not that I'm proud of that, but that scared the crap out of me. And I ended up getting phone calls for a while from the recruiter's office threatening that I was in breach of the contract and I could go to jail and all this kind of stuff. Now, obviously it wasn't, because I was never actually sworn in. But as a 19-year-old kid, it scared the crap out of me. But I still laugh about it now. And as funny as that story is to me, there is a little bit of a downside to it, that I've realized over the years that a lot of the insecurities that I've had with myself, and insecurity, feeling of just not measuring up, is just what I said at the beginning, is that the men in my family have served, and I've got men in my life who I think the world of, who have served, and majority of the guys that I spend time reading or listening to their podcasts have served in the military. And so what inevitably happened is, over time, I end up judging myself and assessing my worth off of the job that they did as a soldier. And just what I've had to come to terms with over the years, and I'll give credit to the Holy Spirit for doing that, is I've realized how unfair that is to myself, and how unfair that is to the people who I have charge over, right? So Ashley, the kids, men who were in my tribe, who I try to be some sort of an influence of leadership or of a godly man in their lives. And my neighbor's calling me. Back up, I don't know that it's necessarily, I don't want to say that it's not fair so much as it is. It does myself and it does those in my circle a great disservice when I don't allow myself to be utilized in the way that God called me to be utilized, right? So instead of looking at my life where I am, looking at who God's called me to be, looking at the gifts that He's put into my life, and making the best of those and being the best steward I can be for those things, I've spent a great deal of my life basing my worth and my ability to influence others off of the job and off of the call that other men have had. And that's complete nonsense, right? Until we allow ourselves to be seen the way God has called us, and we live in our lives according to His word and to His plan for our lives, we're not able to walk in His will for our lives, if that makes sense. And so it doesn't mean that I am or that you or anyone else is necessarily walking in sin, so much as it is we can't walk in the power that He has set aside for us because we're not walking in accordance to the life that He called us to specifically. And I get it that one of the things that we all come into contact with, or we all encounter rather, is that oftentimes the battles that we get thrust into, whether it be battles within our family, things we're called to protect, our faith even, oftentimes we get thrown into those battles, we get thrown into that war, right? And we find out who we are because we find ourselves in the middle of a war that we didn't choose. And that's life. Like that's it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong when you found yourself there, but I found in my life, and I would imagine that most of you are the same way, found the greatest seasons of growth and maturity, both physically and spiritually, or in the seasons where you woke up or you found yourself in a situation that called you to fight that you didn't choose, right? Maybe it was a health concern, maybe it was a financial crisis, maybe it was just life fell apart, and maybe it was just bad choices. But you got thrust into something that wasn't your choice. And as hard as that is, I found that when I look back on it, those are some of the greatest seasons in my life. And one of the greatest, to me anyway, one of the best visuals of that is if you've seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, and Tom Hanks' character, Captain Harris, is on, they're looking for Private Ryan, and he's got his men, and they're in the thick of the battle, and they lose 2 men. And in that moment, his leadership is called into question because he made a call that was not popular with his team. And it's one of those things where he finally stops and calls into conversation that exact thing with his team, was that, guys, I didn't choose this, right? You guys have an idea of who I am, but I'm only this person because I had to be, because life required that of me. I've got a quick video clip for it. Check it out, and then we'll jump back into the conversation.
What's it up to? What is it, $300? Is that it? 300? I'm a school teacher. I teach English composition. This little town called Abley, Pennsylvania. The last 11 years, I've been at Thomas Alva Edison High School. I was a coach of the baseball team in the springtime. Back home, and I tell people what I do for a living, and they think, well, that figures. But over here, it's a big mystery. So I guess I've changed some. Sometimes I wonder if I've changed so much, my wife is even going to recognize me whenever it is I get back to her. And how I'll ever be able to tell her about days like today. Ryan, I don't know anything about Ryan. I don't care. Man means nothing to me. It's just a name. But if going to Ramel and finding him so he can go home, if that earns me the right to get back to my wife, well, then that's my mission.
All right, so I absolutely love that scene in the movie. It's such a scene of vulnerability and of humility, and and for me, not just because of the military aspect of which I made clear that I love, but I told you earlier at the beginning of this that I just assumed that I would fall into the military because that's what everyone in my family had done. But the truth of the matter is, what I went to school for, and all the way through high school, all I ever wanted to do was to teach and to coach baseball. And it's funny how sometimes we find ourselves in in new seasons in our lives and the things that God's put into our lives, that I think he honors those desires. And so I had a mentor of mine who told me one time, he said, hold tight to the word that the Holy Spirit gives you, but hold very loosely to the picture that it creates, right? And so sometimes God gives you things, and he gives you desires, and he paints these pictures in your heart for things. But then sometimes the way they get interpreted is not what you would have expected, right? So obviously I'm not a teacher, and I'm not a high school baseball coach, but I do have the opportunity to help Ashley homeschool our 4 kids, and I get to coach the boys baseball team. And you see my post, that's one of my favorite things to do is to teach them sports. And I love to teach when I get the opportunity with our marriage class at church, and even this platform here, as much as it's kind of a place for me just to talk and to kind of create my own outward therapy. I hope that in the process I'm able to teach somebody else something because of what I've gone through. And so, here I am at almost 40, and I didn't become a teacher and a baseball coach out of high school. The things that I love the most, I get to do on a daily basis. And so I trust that the Lord knew that, and he honored those things. And it's kind of the same thing with that scene in Saving Private Ryan, is that, look, guys, like, who I am and who I've been is one person. But when the time calls for you to step up and step into the battle and to answer that call, you become a brand new person. And you can equate that to salvation. You can equate that to finally walking in the life that God has called you to live. Maybe it's a call to ministry. Maybe it's a call out of ministry. But if you equate that to this idea of warfare and spiritual warfare, just the things that we encounter in life, when we finally come to that place where we choose to join the fight, our identity has changed, right? So Tom Hanks' character, he went from being just a small town English teacher who taught baseball in the spring to being a man who changed the course of history for so many people. You think about Ryan's family after that. If he hadn't answered that call, there would be no legacy there for his family. And so by answering that call, he changed the course of history. And one of my favorite parts of that is at the end. He talks about, you hear him longing for his wife, and I don't know if my wife would recognize me. And he makes the comment that, I don't know Private Ryan, I don't care who he is, but if it gets me back home to my wife, then that's my mission, right? And I wish that as men, and I say this to men, but to women, to children, to kids who are listening, to whoever, your mission in life is to be a reflection of Christ, right? If we feel that our mission has anything to do with our job title or our financial status or any of those things, guys, we're missing it, right? We're missing so much opportunity to see good and to see our world changed. And whether it's the course of history for men and for the world, or maybe it's just the course of history for our kids, it's worth it. Battles have been fought and wars have been fought since the dawn of time, and power has exchanged hands and countries have been redrawn. And majority of the men who fought in those battles, their names will never be remembered, and that's a tragedy in itself. But it just goes to show that war and this power struggle is part of life, and you can choose to hang your identity and your hat on the physical wars of this world, or you can choose to identify yourself by stepping into the fight that God's called us to, right? And it's just there's so much out there that we have an opportunity to impact, and we blame life sometimes for where we find ourselves and for the seasons that just suck, to be honest with you. And the truth is that yes, life happened, but it's not just that life happened. More times than not, it's that life happened and we chose not to take an active part in it. We chose not to be on the offensive of making things happen or making changes happen in our lives when we knew that was the right thing to do. We chose not to walk away from a toxic relationship, or we chose not to pray with our kids or to engage the word with them. We chose not to do the best job that we could do while we were at work. We chose to steal from our company. Yes, life happens, but my experience has been that more times than not, we blame life for our poor choices and our lack of action. And I think it's a huge disservice. And at the end of the day, guys, the responsibility I have as the standard bearer of my family, the standard that I set for my boys is the standard that they will measure themselves off of when they become husbands and men. And my daughters will measure their future husbands and the father of their children off the standard that I set. And to me, there's no greater responsibility in life than being able to be that standard bearer for my family. And it is so important, because the truth of the matter is that at some point somebody is going to guide your family to where their road's going to lead, right? And so we can entrust pop culture to do that. We can trust Lady Gaga and whoever I don't know who's famous in music right now to be that. We can entrust sports icons to do that. We can entrust political figures, even Donald Trump, to do that, and we're going to miss it. And maybe you're lucky enough that you didn't take an active role, and some man will enter into your family's life who will give them a clear course, or you can choose to be the man that steps up and writes their history for them. Guys, it's a generational thing. This isn't just about you and the choices that you make today. The choices that you make will impact your family and impact your life for generations to come. And we see that all throughout Scripture, the sins of the father, and where a man chose to be silent, and it changed the course of history. Guys, choose to stand and fight. Choose to enter the war. He's calling you, and he's calling you to fight. He's calling you into battle. He's not calling you to tiptoe and to lay by the pool and be a passive Christian, to be a passive husband or father or employee or brother or friend. He's calling you to be an active member of your tribe, guys. Like, stand up and lead. And I say this to myself too. So that's my encouragement to you guys today. And as we kick off this series, is not so much the teaching aspect of it, but the rallying call of open your eyes, open your ears, listen to the voice of the Lord. He's calling you to the battle, and be responsive, just as Samuel is responsive to the Lord's call in the night. Guys, time's running out, and and I don't say that as an end times or end of days phrase there. I mean that in the sense of, the longer you wait, the less opportunities you have with your kids, and the further away you drift from your spouse. And so I encourage you, I implore you, I'm walking this road with you. Guys, stand up, answer the call, let's fight it together. And I hope you guys will stick with us to this series. Next week we are, actually it's not even next week, I'll have it out by the end of this week, probably Friday or Saturday morning. And the next segment will be called choosing your crew. And so we're going to be talking about the people that you surround yourself with. And so I hope that you guys are inspired and encouraged by this, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Take care.